Welcome to News9 Live and you are watching On Point with me. Before I introduce you to today's On Points, let's take a quick look at the headlines. Delhi Chief Minister Arvind Kejriwal walks out of jail after Supreme Court grants him bail in the Delhi exercise policy case. Rain pounds Delhi NCR, flights delayed, traffic jams due to immense waterlogging. IMD issues orange alert. After Simla, Mandi erupts in protests over illegal mosque construction. Police use water cannon on agitators. Hotelier apologizes to Nirmala Sitharaman. It sparks a row. Rahul Gandhi slams BJP government for their arrogance towards small business owners. Doctors write to President and Prime Minister in midst of the continuing deadlock with Mamata Banerjee. Cop suspended. Intelligence chief transferred over Ganapati procession violence in Mandya. Himanta Biswa Sarma blames Congress extremist groups for violence during election drive in Kamrup. Delhi High Court grants interim bail to 4 co-owners of basement linked to the tragic death of 3 IS aspirants in Old Rajendra Nagar. Centre renames Port Blair as Srivijayapuram to shed colonial imprint. Hindus in Bangladesh became target of the movement which dislodged Sheikh Hasina from power. It was globally understood that political protest did acquire a religious undertone, but powerful faces in the government denied it. Politicians denied it. They said that it was political in nature. But investigation done by a leading Bangladesh daily, Prothom Alo, proves otherwise. This newspaper investigated it. They have released a report on attacks on minorities that took place between August 5th and 20th. And the report says it's a mixed bag. The report highlights multiple issues. The highest number of cases were witnessed on August 5th and 6th. If you take a look at the report, between August 5th to 20th, 1,068 homes and business establishments of Hindus were attacked. 22 houses of worship were targeted in the same period. However, out of the 1,068 homes and businesses that were targeted, only 506 of the owners were associated with Awami League. Attacks on Hindus took place in 49 districts of the country, and the largest number of them took place in Khulna Division in southwestern Bangladesh. Every district witnessed communal violence, and 295 homes and businesses of Hindus were destroyed. Rangpur saw the second largest violent incidents with 219 properties damaged, followed by Mymensingh, which witnessed 183 attacks. 155 attacks in Rajshahi, 79 in Dhaka, 68 in Barishal, and 45 in Chattogram, and 25 in Sylhet. The leading Bangladeshi newspaper also reports that it was not only about Hindus, but other minority communities within Islam and also Christianity outside the fold of Islam. Churches in Khulna, Mymensingh and Parbati Purva attacked. And there were attempts to strike missionary schools and colleges in Chattogram. Christians faced 10 attacks across 5 divisions. 137 homes belonging to Ahmadiyyas, as I was saying, were attacked. A lot of mainstream Islamic countries, a lot of Islamic countries do not accord even minority status to Ahmadiyyas. The case is Pakistan. Well, but that's a different debate. The issue is citizenship gives you some rights and liberties under the constitution of the country. 6 Ahmadiyya mosques were vandalized. The investigation reveals that not all attacks on Hindus were politically motivated, as claimed by many in Bangladesh, including interim government head Muhammad Yunus. He had said that violence against Hindus was political in nature and not communal. However, over half of the 1,068 incidents targeted Hindus with no affiliations to the Awami League. It strongly suggests that somehow, when the movement was against despotism of Sheikh Hasina, or her 15 years which the people of Bangladesh felt was undemocratic, not giving space to other voices, maybe tyrannical, but political protest also acquired a religious idiom and perhaps also acquired distinctly anti-minority element, which indicated that violence was a mixed bag, not political in nature. The minorities did come under attack. So this is not a discussion in blame game, but this is to understand why this happened, why somehow Hindus became target. On this, I am joined by Salim Samad, senior journalist and a columnist from Dhaka, Bangladesh. Thank you very much, sir, for joining me. I am also joined by Sohas Chakma, Director Rights and Risk Analysis Group. Thank you, sir, for joining me. And also joined by Ambassador Veena Sikri, a former High Commissioner of India to Bangladesh. Thank you, madam. Thank you so much. But I'll allow Salim Samad, who joins me from Dhaka, to speak first. He is joining us from Dhaka. So, sir, you must have gone through the report, your comments on it, and then I'll go to my other guests.
First of all, thank you for having me. I want to explain myself first before you go into a debate. That I am an independent journalist and I am not a nationalist. I am not a patriot. So when you are coming to the issues of the attacks, the vandalism, the persecution of the religious minorities, and of course this has been condemned for years and years, and the media has been very, very vocal. Prothom Alo is one of the leading newspapers who does investigation. Similar with Daily Star and New Age and the other newspapers have been very, very have been outspoken about this religious attacks, the persecution, vandalism, the desecration of the temples, the churches, as well as the mosque of the Ahmadiyya Muslims. So this has happening since 1972. I am not sympathizing. I told you that I am not a partisan. I am not a patriot, first of all. So this has nothing to do with this is a legacy that is happening for years and years and years, for the last 52 years, and not a single government has taken steps to bring the perpetrators to justice. That has never happened. So this is one of the reasons that the perpetrators always had an upper hand on the impunity. So once there is an impunity, this is definitely going to continue. Professor Yunus, if there is an investigation, if there is a probe commission, if there is an probe by the government, definitely I believe that even if you look into the reports, the Hindu Buddha Parishad, I mean, the Hindu Buddhist Unity Council had mentioned that the previous perpetrators were also not brought to justice.
Mr. Samad, Bangladesh has a very rich literary tradition, cultural tradition, poets, writers, and Bangla in itself is a very beautiful and a rich language. How come this religious fringe finds this space in political process?
We should not forget that Bangladesh, the map, which is called East Bengal, has been created on the basis of religion. So you cannot just do away with the so-called mentioning about constitution, etc., and the literature. 1905, there's a partition of the Bengal. It was based on religion. On 1947, again there was a partition which created East Bengal and which became a province of Pakistan, was based on religion. Unfortunately or fortunately, that same boundary is now Bangladesh. So there is a legacy. So this legacy has been never routed by no regime, by no political leaders, never ever. So don't blame this group. And of course, the rise of the Islamists has always been there. Since Bangladesh was liberated, and the Mukti Bahini had to fight them, but that didn't do much because they have to be brought to justice. Only recently, in 2011 and 12 and 13, the war criminals, those who have committed crime against humanity, those people who are in Bangladesh, mostly from Jamaat Islami as well as from the Jati Party and the BNP, and then also one from the Awami League, were taken to the court in the International Crimes Tribunal, which is War Crimes Tribunal, where they were punished. And that punishment have not ended the political Islam, which has taken a deep root in Bangladesh.
Why is constitutionalism, Mr. Chakman, you stay with me, Mr. Samad. Mr. Chakman, why is constitutionalism so difficult in post-colonial space that we live in?
Well, that's because the political structure is still built on religious belief, and we have not been able to establish societies governed by the rule of law. And it's extremely unfortunate that these incidents take place almost in entire South Asia, and increasingly it has become almost the identity of the most nations in South Asia. I think the fall of Hasina in Bangladesh led to formation of a government which is headed by people who had come from civil society background. And large number of them, they are already known as well-known civil liberties activists, those who are serving in various positions of the caretaker government. I think the unfortunate thing is when, without investigation, the chief advisor of the caretaker government concludes that this attacks took place because of the affiliation with a particular political party. It almost closes the doors for any investigation. I think the international community expect at least those who come from civil society background, to have a different view than mainstream political parties. Mainstream political parties, of course, use religion, and that's the opium to get votes and etc. But I think if we do not investigate, then it will not lead to what Mr. Samad was saying. What's the main factor which is perpetuating this violence? It's the impunity. If you believe that you are beyond the reach of the law, you will continue to use this kind of tactics. And when you have some kind of a carte blanche without even the preliminary investigation had begun, then if you conclude that the attacks took place because of the political affiliation, it's very, very difficult to proceed. And I think after the report of the Prothom Alo, which sort of did the preliminary inquiries, I think it's for the authorities to ensure that each of these incidents are investigated and perpetrators are brought to justice. And of course, justice is very difficult, not only in Bangladesh, anywhere in South Asia. The judicial process it's so time consuming, and it wears out the victims. But somewhere, I think a message needs to be sent that this kind of attacks on minorities anywhere in South Asia is not acceptable. And if it was a political party government in Bangladesh, I think my expectation would have been different. But many of the people in the current government, we have seen them in the civil liberties movement. So I think our expectation was a bit different. Rather than dismissing, at the threshold level, I think it should have been investigated. And now that the facts have come out, and I think it makes the case for investigation.
As a seeker, you have served in Dhaka. I have a two-pronged question to you. Thank you, Suhas. I have a two-pronged question for you. One, for example, recently there was, there were a lot of celebrations, and people came out and celebrated, in context of Jinnah in Bangladesh. That happened in last 48 hours. There was celebration. And secondly, why do you think that this fringe has become assertive? Is it to do with the larger identity of Bangladesh as a nation? Is it to do with that? Or what is the political process by which this strain has become so strong, whereby political anger acquires a strong religious idiom and minorities get attacked? Why? Please put this in perspective for a larger viewer.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for inviting me on the show. I'd like to say very clearly that what the Prothom Alo report brings out, and it's a very detailed and excellent analysis, full of facts and figures, and it also covers a period far beyond, the 8th of August when the interim government led by Professor Muhammad Yunus took charge. I think it illustrates one point very clearly, which is not stated in the report, but which is now, screaming from every corner of every decision taken in Bangladesh, which is that it is the Jamaat-e-Islami which is in charge. I don't think that any government led by Professor Muhammad Yunus, left to himself, with his secular credentials, with his interaction with the rest of the world, with his dealing with all the people of Bangladesh, the women of Bangladesh, from the minorities, from the poorest of the poor, would he have condoned such actions on the minorities, such absolutely cruel and unforgivable actions against the minorities? No, this is the Jamaat-e-Islami which is in control, and their worldview on Bangladesh has always been completely different. They do not recognize the outcome of the liberation war. They are going back to undoing the outcome of the liberation war. We do know that the Pakistan ambassador in Bangladesh has been going around meeting all the interim government advisors, all the advisors in different fields, and his question is always one: we must resolve the unsettled issues of 1971, and that is why when we see the Jinnah celebration, I think it was the death anniversary of Muhammad Ali Jinnah that was being celebrated by the Salimullah Academy in Bangladesh. What hits you is, number one, they are using Urdu, playing Urdu songs and reciting Urdu poetry. So the whole brilliance of the language movement, the whole basis of the government of Bangladesh on culture and religion side by side, they're the two sides of the same coin. You can maintain your religion, but you can also maintain your culture and language and other attributes which lead to a secular society. But the Jamaat-e-Islami never accepted secularism. So the whole basis of the Bangladesh constitution is now being called into question, and the pillar of secularism, the pillar of democracy is being called into question, because certainly these attacks, as brought out by the Prothom Alo report, are not democratic at all, because they do not recognize the rights of other citizens. And we have seen that these attacks on the minority communities continued far beyond the assurances given by Professor Muhammad Yunus, because he went, as we know, he went and he visited the Dhakeshwari temple, he met people, he said that we're going to make sure that every Bangladesh citizen has equal rights, but none of these assurances are being fulfilled. We've seen the strong resistance by the minority communities in Bangladesh. We've seen the demonstration they've had, They've asked for a stop of all, a cessation of all attacks on Hindus and other minorities. The Ahmadiyas have been under attack all the while, but we do know that under the other governments, that many times they were saved, and they were asserting, their equality with other Bangladesh citizens. We've seen reports of the attacks on the Christian minorities, and the bishop and other people talking about how their churches were destroyed. So I do not know. It is really worrisome to see that
you raise a very relevant point, in terms of post-coloniality, in terms of post-coloniality and constitutionalism. Mr. Samad, it's also about identification, the nature of the state and the nature of who you are always remains contested in many of the post-colonial countries. Do you see that churn in Bangladesh, a section feeling closer to Pakistan before its birth? It's a question. It's a question.
It's a question. I can definitely tell you, because I'm in Dhaka and I'm an independent journalist. I don't see that there is anything to do with Pakistan or Muhammad Ali Jinnah, because even in Bangladesh, the Mahatma Gandhi's anniversary is also observed every year since I know it for the last 35 years, maybe earlier also. So it is nothing to do who is celebrated. Even Kim Il-sung's birth celebration is observed, Mao celebration, Marx celebration. What are you going to do if somebody has? But in this case where Qaeda was in, this is not the first time. I mean, maybe this has got a prominent in the press, but it's not the first time. I have attended at least 2 of the seminars, even during Sheikh Hasina's regime, in the press club, and one, of course, in another year. And let me tell you, this group is what is called by the High Court, has been defined as a Urdu-speaking community, because the Biharis or whatever, standard Pakistan is not used there officially. The High Court has given a coinage of because they are Urdu-speaking. So that was an Urdu-speaking community which organized, and they do organize it every year. And they believe that their heart and mind is still within Pakistan. So that is something that Bangladesh has never had a counter narrative about them. But the Urdu-speaking community in Bangladesh, everybody were born after Bangladesh, all have a national ID. They all go to high school and college and universities. The majority of them are now, of course, if you're talking about that, they have been assimilated in the community. There is intermarriage, massive intermarriage among this Urdu-speaking community and the other communities in Bangladesh. Ahmadis is the only group of community in Bangladesh who are definitely secluded. They do not mingle or cannot assimilate with the rest of the Bangladesh, because the majority of the Bangladesh Muslims are Sunni Muslims who are radicalized Muslims, and they have been radicalized since Bangladesh was born. And I don't know why this mindset, nobody has taken responsibility of changing their mindset. So that is one of the reasons. And Christians, I studied in a missionary school, a Christian school, all through my life, and I have found that there is, at that time, of course, nobody possibly understood that they are going studying in a missionary school. But I have found at that time that people used to, even, I'm talking about 60 years ago, even at that time, I could see that there were a lot of, negative narratives about the Christians, and they believe the Christians have come from all over from Europe. They have been brought by the British colonialists. That is a different story. Even the other ethnic minorities, most of the people in Bangladesh, even in the literature, they have mentioned them as aliens, whether they are Chakmas or they are Garos or they are Marmas. All of them are described as aliens. So the only son of the soil, the majority of the people in Bangladesh believe, is Sunni Muslim. Therefore, there is no room for others, and that is very sad. And I'm telling you again and again that no regime had taken responsibility to address this crisis.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chakma. I'll take this point forward. Why hasn't anything been done like that? It's like not looking at the rhinoceros in the room, not dealing with the main issue. Bull in the china shop. Why?
Well, it's partly because, whom we call the fringe elements.
Or is it a powerful political constituency within Bangladesh, mobilizing votes, mobilizing opinion, So you need to keep them.
No, not only for vote and electoral purposes, but we have to bear in mind that people in general, they have their own ethnic or religious identities, and whom we call fringe elements. They are not actually fringe elements. They are actually reflection of the mindset of the majority community, which doesn't accommodate anybody else. And I would say, in the case of Bangladesh, it has become much more difficult because of, as Mr. Samad had mentioned, the history of the partition. Because usually when we talk about partition in India, it's about 1947. It's not 1947. It started with the partition of Bengal in 1905 when Lord Curzon divided East Bengal and West Bengal. And in the post-colonial period after the independence in 1947, when the electoral politics came into being, then it did not provide the space to the minority communities. So when the constitution was set up, and that's where I think the difference lies. We had a constitution of India which tried to accommodate everybody, given the different origins and beliefs of the people. Then you had Pakistan, which identified itself based on religion, although Jinnah possibly had a completely different view when he had taken the responsibility. But Bangladesh could never come out of it, and that's why I think the liberation period, the Jamaat Islami actually had supported Pakistan, and that chapter, that's why it's still not closed. And because they do not matter electorally or in electoral politics, then they cannot become a political factor. If you look at in India, I'll give an example. When certain decision is taken by the central government at this point in time, if it is opposed by its allies belonging to or who are serving the interests of, say, the Dalits, scheduled tribes, etc., there's a political vote bank which can harm the political interests of the parties. Then they immediately correct themselves or course correct them.
Okay.
And it usually has not taken place in Bangladesh. At least I have not seen that. And that's why, people like Mr. Samad are a rarity in Bangladesh in that sense. That's what I was saying, the expectation of the minority community. It was that this is a government which is at least led by the people who claim to be liberal. So there is more expectation from Nobel laureate and lots of NGO heads who are the caretaker advisors than actually other political.
Okay.
So that's why I think
absolutely. There's a bit of a problem with your voice, Mr. Chakma. Ambassador Sikri, I know you wanted to come in, and I'll have a closing comment from you, madam. But my question to you is, do you think that there will be a cultural shift, apart from the political shift, to larger trends that dominate Pakistan and Bangladesh? Do we expect that?
Let me say that this is the effort. This is definitely the effort underway today by the Jamaat-e-Islami-led regime, which has done this military coup against former Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina. Because I must say, I don't agree at all with Mr. Salim Samad that this has always been so in Bangladesh. I do know, I have lived in Bangladesh and I've traveled very often to Bangladesh in the last 10 to 15 years. And I know that everybody in Bangladesh took great pride in the factor of secularism being one of the pillars of their constitution. And they used to always point out how every festival was celebrated together, whether it is Pehla Baishakh, whether it is Durga Puja, whether it is Eid, everybody got together and celebrated, and how they rejoiced in having collective celebrations. You know how Saraswati Puja was in all the universities was celebrated together. The goddess of learning was respected by one and all. So this is certainly not at all the image that Bangladesh has built up over the last 50 years. We do know that father of the nation, Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, was a put secularism and democracy into the constitution with great pride and with great meaning. He wanted it to continue. But we also know that over the last 50 years, whenever elections have been held, the Jamaat-e-Islami has never got a more than a minuscule proportion of the vote. Some say 4%, some say 5%, some say 8%. That's it. And now the effort is to not have any elections at all and to say that we have always been a Sunni radicalized community. This is not correct. Ask all the students, ask all the businessmen, ask the corporate leaders, ask even the people representative of the media. They will never accept that it has always been like that. In fact, media has been writing in Bangladesh that why is the Mohammed Yunus-led interim government doing exactly what they are accusing former Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina of doing? They're calling her anti-democratic, but they're doing the same thing themselves. Whether it is putting, let's say, Tajul Islam, who was defending the Jamaat-e-Islami in the War Crimes Tribunal, he is now the chief prosecutor. And they want to, want him to prosecute somebody who's accused of murder and things like that. So I think this is a complete reversal of what the interim government led by being promised. They promise something and they do the exact opposite. This is the worry. And they're doing exactly what they accuse Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina of doing. So I think this is a great matter of concern that they're not even offering a solution, that these attacks have taken place, but they're not offering any respite, any justice, any cognizance of these attacks. This is the point of worry. And is this a democracy then? That you're saying that, these attacks are taking place because it's a Sunni radicalized society. So is this a democracy then?
But actually, at least I'm very happy that at least a newspaper in Bangladesh had the gumption to send all its reporters to 49 districts and I think 48 or 49 upazillas as they call them. And all of them,
out of 64, 75% of the districts in Bangladesh have seen these attacks on the minorities. Now, is that a statement that is to be lauded? We are seeing Mr. Salim Samad lauding that statement. This is going to happen because we are now a Sunni radicalized society. I mean, but has he forgotten about democracy? Does he not say there should be any elections at all? So, I mean, I'm really worried to hear such statements from a person who says that he is, he is a follower of the Bangladesh constitution. There is no reference to the constitution anymore. I think this is matters to be taken on board and to be really given serious attention to, because it shows that Bangladesh is changing. Now, he's saying, Pakistan, we always were like that. But, people in Bangladesh used to always revile Pakistan. They said we fought against Pakistan in 1971 because we didn't want that. We didn't want what is happening in Pakistan to happen here. The fight was that the same thing should not happen in Bangladesh. But now we have a person who's come on television and saying we want the same things to happen because we've always been a part of Pakistan. And in fact, the people who were having the celebration had the gumption to say that, Jinnah brought Pakistan and we have brought Bangladesh because there was Pakistan. So we have to respect Jinnah now. So a complete reversal of what has been happening for the last 53 years in Bangladesh, and a complete negation of the struggle of the people of Bangladesh for their victory in the liberation war of 1971.
Madam, thank you so much. I'm really running short of time, but this is the report Prothom Alo that carried out. It clearly states that the 168 that attacks took place, out of the 50% of them were not on those who were associated with the Awami League. And it just goes on to show that the attacks were not just political, they were also religious in nature. Mohammed Yunus is a global icon and much more is expected from him. And what is required is that the constitutionalism be enforced, and constitutionalism should not become a casualty of populist and popular politics.